Hey, chemists. All right, so we are going to be investigating both the macro and molecular scale of phases of matter today. First, let's recap about what we are trying to do throughout this unit. So remember that we're trying to solve the mystery of a missing methane lake on Titan. Titan is one of Saturn's moons, and on Titan, it's really cold. So cold that methane, which is usually in its gaseous phase on Earth, is a standing liquid on this moon. In 2007, NASA was actually studying this liquid methane lake on Titan, and as of 2 years later, they weren't able on their satellite images to see this lake anymore. So we were looking at two claims that either this lake froze or it evaporated. So in order to start investigating which of these claims are true, we have to figure out what would make this substance freeze or evaporate. And in order to get some more information, we're going to study a slightly similar substance, water, that we have the ability to study in all three phases of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. And we're going to look at what allows water to change phase and then apply that knowledge to this methane lake mystery. So we're going to be looking at water and methane at a few different scales. Scale is just the relative size of something. If you think about it, and I say relative because I am not a very tall individual, but I'm a lot larger than a pencil. But that doesn't make a pencil really small because a pencil is actually a lot bigger than like a droplet of water or an ant. So size is very relative because you're comparing the size of one object to another. We're going to be studying substances at two different scales. The macro scale, or objects that we can actually see with our naked eye, like this glass of water. And then we're going to also be studying phases of matter at the molecular scale. And this is things like molecules that we actually can't see with our human eye. So like this water molecule. Liquid water, gaseous water, and solid water are all made up of many tiny water molecules. And it's the way that these molecules behave that actually give water its characteristics in all three phases. So we need to learn more about this molecular scale. So just like I was showing you that water molecule, okay, a molecule is just a group of atoms that are joined together in a particular way. So if we go back to that water molecule, we see that we have two hydrogen atoms that are attached to an oxygen atom. When we go to study methane, methane is an entirely different substance because instead of being made of hydrogen and oxygen, it's made out of a hydrogen and carbon, and those atoms are arranged in a different way, so therefore different molecule, different substance. So we're going to be studying how the molecules behave in these two substances to better understand what could have happened to that liquid methane lake on Titan. This is a neat website that kind of lets us explore the scale of the universe. So right now we're looking at items, objects that we can see with our naked eye. So a hailstone, a ruler, we have an elephant, a saguaro cactus, an aircraft, a tree, the Statue of Liberty, the Titanic. So all of these, as I start to like zoom out, are all objects that we can see with our naked eye. So these are all at the macro scale. We're even capable of seeing things like an earthworm, a coffee bean, a grain of rice, an ant. But once we start getting a little bit below these objects like a grain of salt or the width of a hair, we start to get into that molecular scale. So when we're at the cellular level, that's where things get a little bit out of our range of sight. So things like this white blood cell and red blood cell, that's what makes up your blood. And yes, you can see the red color in your blood, which is due to your red blood cells, but you can't see the individual cell itself. It's just the clumping of those red blood cells that gives it its hue. So if we continue to move, things like E. coli, bacteria, the coronavirus, all of those things you actually can't see with your naked eye. So those are all objects, substances that are found at this molecular scale level. All right, so the next part of class, we actually spent observing water at its macro level, and we actually modeled a few phase changes that could help us to determine what happened to the methane lake on Titan. So all I want you to do is I want you to watch the video. I'm going to be narrating a little bit, and then I'm going to be asking you some questions about how water changed throughout.
All right, chemists. For this experiment, I have an empty cup and I'm going to place boiling water in its liquid form into the cup. So very, very, very hot liquid. And I want you to take a moment to observe the water in the cup. So I put water in its liquid form into the cup. Is there any other water present? Any water in the form of a solid or a gas? If you say yes, I want you to think of what phase change is occurring right now in this cup. Going from water in its liquid form to water in its gaseous form. Now I want you to observe what happens when I place a clear plastic cup on top of the other cup. What do you see happening? And it might be easier to see the change in the cup on top by looking at the bottom and the top. What do you think the temperature of this top cup is now? Cool. Now let's look at what happened inside our plastic cup. Ooh. What form is the water in at the top of the cup? So if we started off with liquid water, and we see that evaporating or turning into a gas and escaping the cup, when we trap it with a cooler cup, that gas or water vapor condenses and turns back into liquid water.
So that makes me wonder, what conditions have to be met before that methane lake evaporates on the surface of the moon? So the last thing that we did was I had students actually draw where they thought the water molecules ended up after the experiment was done. So notice that I showed water molecules as just little round circles. And remember that at the molecular scale, water in any form is made up of water molecules. But you guys are going to actually, for your at-home activity, going to be studying how those behave in a solid and liquid and gas. And so I just wanted to kind of see what knowledge you already had about that. So I'm going to present you with 3 different pictures from students, and I want you to tell me which one you think best represents what happened to the water at the molecular level by the end of this experiment. All right, chemist, I know that was really long to watch, but I wanted you to get the full effect of what you missed out in class. And you guys are going to be doing the same Google Slides activity that was assigned to the other students, where you're going to be working in the simulator and studying substances at the molecular level, seeing what the molecules that make it up, how they move and how they behave, and trying to identify what phase of matter, solid, liquid, or gas, that substance is in. So do your best, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks, chemists.